Welcome to another edition of Hey Bobby with Vice President of the Cleveland Indians, Bobby DiBiasio, brought to you by NECA-IBEW. And this week, Bobby, I thought for the most part we'd stay on the field a little bit, and then I want to talk about how important the Goodyear Complex is to the Cleveland Indians. But I know he left last night's game with a little bit of a ring finger injury. We'll find out more about that. But I really wanted to talk about Aaron Civale, how coming into the last couple of seasons, we would say, oh, here's Civale. He's okay. He'll get us through. He has emerged as one of the better pitchers in the American League. And he doesn't have the 98-mile-an-hour fastball, but what he is a high-end pitcher that was part of a great draft class. And I thought you could talk a little bit more about Civale and certainly his development and what he means to our team, Bobby.
Yeah, Ray, that draft class, I think maybe you have to start there. The 2016 draft has produced three of our top pitchers most recently. As a matter of fact, Aaron Civale was the highest of the draft picks of the three pitchers who were drafted in that 2016 class. He was drafted in the third round out of Northeastern in Boston. He's a Northeast kid. He he grew up in Connecticut, went to college at Northeastern. And sorry about that.
That's okay. I like that song.
People are after me this morning. They all want to know about Aaron Civale. Again, a Connecticut kid, went to college at Northeastern in Boston, Massachusetts, and was the third round pick of that draft. And Shane Bieber from California was the fourth round pick, and Zach Plesac was the 12th round of that draft. So our top three starters as the 2021 season began, all from the same draft class. That's pretty remarkable. He's a big kid. He's 6'2", about 210. He just turned 26. He had his 26th birthday on June 12th. He's a guy that climbed the ladder, pitched in 2017, both Lake County and Lynchburg. So he spent time in the Class A. 2018, everybody in Akron got a chance to see him the whole season for the Rubber Ducks there in 18. Then in 19, he started at Akron, went to Columbus, and then ended up in Cleveland. And then obviously 2020 and 21 has been a mainstay of our rotation. It's pretty funny. One of the stories, and I'm going to pull out the media guide so I get the names right as I read this, that what put him on the map sort of was Northeastern played an exhibition game against the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park. And Aaron Civale was tabbed to pitch in that game. And I'm sorry, the game was in Fort Myers in spring training. I thought it was at Fenway Park. But he struck out David Ortiz, Hanley Ramirez, Mike Napoli, and Xander Bogaerts during that period. And all of a sudden the scouts stood up and took notice. And so that got him into the Cape Cod League, which is one of the premier summer leagues, where he became an all-star. And all of a sudden he's on the radar of many more scouts, because he started his career in college as a reliever and then moved into the starting rotation, I think his junior year. And smart kid, interestingly, he chose Northeastern University in Boston simply because it had the best combination of a mechanical engineering program and baseball. So those two things met his needs coming out of high school, and obviously been a mainstay for us, and we're keeping our fingers crossed, so to speak, as he goes to see Dr. Graham. We've had too many of our pitchers and catchers go see Dr. Graham this year, the hand specialist down in Dayton. And let's hope. It's just amazing the tips of guys' fingers where the ball rolls off the finger puts such friction and tension on their hands. Let's just hope it's something that might sideline them for maybe a start or so and nothing real serious. So keep our fingers crossed there.
One thing we've talked about is, with pitchers and hit batsman's rate, that is way up. And we've talked about spin. The one thing that's most impressive to me about Civale, Bobby, is his pinpoint control. I mean, he just doesn't walk people. He makes you get in there and have an at bat. He's going to throw strikes.
Yes, he is. And that's the one thing with Tim Belcher, Ruben Niebla, who is now in the big league roster, spent many, many years in our minor league system. Guys like Shane Bieber, attacking the strike zone, commanding and being aggressive in the strike zone. That's the one thing we teach. Tim Belcher always talked about the first pitch. You need a first pitch strike. You need a good, strong first batter. Getting that first out in an inning really changes the dynamic of an inning, and then having a good first inning. So there's certain things that we preach to our pitchers, obviously being aggressive and commanding the strike zone, but those firsts, and it seems to be working for us.
Well, this is Bobby DiBiasio, Vice President, Cleveland Indians. Hey, Bobby, brought to you by NECA-IBEW. And let's stay in the front office, Bobby. And, Chris Antonetti and Mike Chernoff, and sometimes on this show, we talk about the job that they need to do, what they're going to look into. These guys do their job really, really well. Our president and our general manager, they make a great team. We talk about player development, but scouting and finding these guys like Harold Ramirez, who has stepped in and just really given our outfield a jolt. They find these free agents, and we've seen it through the years, and we don't have to go through the whole list, but I thought maybe you can talk about Antonetti, Chernoff, this front office, how they are literally churning the papers and statistics and analytics, looking for those guys to help our team.
Well, Chris and Mike have been together for 18 years. So they really have a wonderful partnership, not only professionally, but personally as well. Chris is in his 23rd season with the Cleveland Indians organization. He's run our baseball operations department for 11 years, the last 6 as president of baseball operations. So people may need to understand that, Paul Dolan is the owner of the team, and underneath him, Chris Antonetti is president of baseball operations. Then a gentleman by the name of Brian Barron is president of business operations. That's how we do that. And part of the business leadership team, Brian and Chris have a tremendous relationship. I can honestly tell you that's not always the case in a lot of sports organizations, that they just somehow, the business and baseball side don't see eye to eye or don't help one another. And that's not true at our place. We work hard to generate as much revenue as we can so that we can give Chris a hefty budget when the time is right to continue a sustained winning culture that he has created. So he's run 11 straight years of being in charge of baseball, as I said, 6th as the president of baseball operations. He started just like Cherney. Cherney started at our place as an intern in the baseball operations department. Chris started as an intern in the Montreal Expos organization. So I always kid him that he's old, that he actually worked for the Montreal Expos. Add Carter Hawkins into that mix. The 3 guys, along with Tito, of course, and a whole group of really talented baseball people in our baseball operations department that have led to the fact that we have the most wins in the American League combined the last 8 years. Again, just haven't crossed the finish line, but we've come close. The sustained winning culture is truly a product of the work that Chris and Mike put in. Cherney was a shortstop second baseman at Princeton for 4 years. He was captain of the baseball team his senior year. Chris was not a baseball player, although he played baseball in high school and that sort of thing. He actually went to Georgetown and learned all about leadership from legendary coach John Thompson. As Chris was the student manager of the basketball team for a couple seasons that John Thompson was the coach, and always says that watching him on a daily basis really instilled in him traits and skill sets, leadership and communication to athletes that he uses through today. So we're very fortunate. We've got that's part of the Dolan philosophy, continuity, stability. We obviously have it at the hierarchy in our baseball operations department.
And part of that blueprint as well is player development. And Bobby, that's where I wanted to go next. We've talked a whole lot about the Goodyear, Arizona complex during spring training and Goodyear Ballpark and the complex itself. But this is a 12-month-a-year complex for the Cleveland Indians. And when you were in Florida, you didn't have that in Florida, but you have that there, which means you can do a whole lot with your player development out in Goodyear, Arizona. And I know there's a lot of listeners who make the trip to Goodyear Ballpark during spring and watch our Indians and such, but they might not understand the biggest picture when we talk about that complex. And I thought maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Right. We just did an overhaul of it as we're now past the 10-year mark of being in Goodyear. It is, our the hub of who we are as a baseball franchise. It's the state-of-the-art training center for our 200 plus athletes and the 100 plus strength, coaching staff. That includes the coaches and the strength coaches and the trainers and nutritionists, et cetera, video guys. That complex is equipped with absolute every single resource that is out there so that our players can be the best they can be. I've said it many times, nobody spends more money. I mean, we're on par with every franchise in Major League Baseball when it comes to spending money on resources available to our players. We have the finest baseball complex in the Dominican for that part of the world. Our facility at Goodyear ranks among the best of any. It's not just the month and a half of spring training, as you said, Ray, that we utilize it. It's a 12-month complex where guys go to rehab. You've been there. When we have everybody in our organization, almost 400 uniformed people, we're busting at the seams. And it's the only time in the month of March where everybody in baseball operations is in one place at one time. And we needed to make sure that we had an opportunity to communicate en masse with this group, to have, our organizational philosophy spread to every single player and coach. Provide every resource from strength and conditioning to a beautiful cafeteria and the nutritional aspect and all the things that it takes to be a pro athlete. The philosophy that's been in place with Mark Chaparro and Chris Antonetti building it, the holistic approach to an athlete. The old days, Ray, it was just throw the bats and balls on the field. and the best talent will rise. Well, that's just not the way it works anymore, and hasn't for a while. And we work hard to make sure that our young people become a better man when they leave us than when they came. We work through sports performance issues, anxiety issues, sleep issues, nutrition issues, not and obviously at you know at length we work with their baseball skills. So we're proud of the complex that we built. It is doing exactly what we had hoped when we moved out there. We had tried hard to find a spot in Florida where we could have a complex like this. It just wasn't in the cards. And so the city of Goodyear extended the welcome mat to us in the Cincinnati Reds, who share Goodyear Ballpark.
I know there's even folks in being in the complex. There's even classrooms out there for teaching things off the baseball diamond. It's really impressive. And I wanted to bring that up, Bobby. We're talking with Vice President Cleveland Indians, Bobby DiBiasio with Hey Bobby, brought to you by NECA-IBEW. As we wrap it up this week, some people are sometimes critical. Oh, the Indians are all the way out in Arizona. It's not as, acceptable as being down in Florida. It was easier. But when you look at the big picture of this story, why I wanted to bring it up today, it's a complex they use 12 months a year. What you're seeing in Cleveland at Progressive Field for those 6-7 months of baseball is the fallout of having this complex 12 months a year. So the month and a half in Arizona with the spring training games is part of it. But what you're seeing is great player development through the Indians organization, and you're seeing it Progressive Field. Right, Bobby?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no question the sustained winning culture is a product of all the hard work that's put in Goodyear. What we've seen and what we had hoped when we built it was a number of our young athletes. And now that we have a dormitory set up right across the street, makes it a little bit easier for some young athlete who wants to come and, instead of working out at their college facility or in their hometown or their wife's hometown, they are wanting to come to Goodyear and be under the eyes of our coaches. And a number of them have moved to the area and spend the entire off season utilizing our facility. And that way we get to keep an eye on them. They understand where we're coming from. When the July draft this year, the draft, as we talked about once on a Zoom, the draft's in July. Once that's all done and the players who sign, all of them will descend on Goodyear. So just that timing alone, like what's going on there right now. Well, there's injured players there. There's the surplus players that if players get injured at Class A or Double A, and the dominoes, if a double A player gets hurt, a guy from Class A has to take his spot. And so the Class A team needs a player, and that group of players comes from who's hanging out in Goodyear, continuing to work. And then when the draft hits, all the draftees come to Goodyear. And then now, instead of going to Mahoning Valley, which is no longer a short season club of ours, they'll stay in Goodyear for 3 months. And we will watch them and work out with them. They'll get to know us. We'll get to know them. So the indoctrination of these young athletes into our system, I think, is going to be so much more effective than the old half season ball. They've already played a whole ton of baseball this year, especially those kids who play Division I college baseball. They've played a whole lot of baseball. A number of them, a couple of them still playing that will get drafted with the College World Series going on. But it's done exactly what we had hoped it would do.
And that puts the lid on another edition of Hey Bobby, Vice President with the Cleveland Indians, Bobby DiBiasio, brought to you by NECA-IBEW. My friend, thank you for making time for us again, and we'll catch up with you again next week. Thanks, Bobby.
Always fun, Ray. Take care, my friend.